Welcome to the Resilient Brain Podcast. Now, on today's episode, we will be talking all about what to expect here from the topics we'll be discussing, and most importantly, what is in it for you. Now, this podcast fuses brain health and longevity with resilience and performance. It'll be science-backed and informative, but also be very real and imperfect. Some episodes will be solo, where I translate complex neuroscience concepts into practical tools, while others will be guest conversations around topics like resilient leadership, health, and stress recovery. And with everything I do, every episode will provide you with actionable takeaways that are easy to implement. So whether you are tired of the constant grind, or you are feeling overwhelmed, over distracted, or overstimulated, or maybe you just want to be more focused and productive, whoever you are, whatever season you are in, you are welcome here. Now, here's what I won't tell you on this podcast: that you need an entire life overhaul, or that quitting your job is the answer. I also won't be telling you to just be less stressed, or that self-care alone, like bubble baths and gratitude journaling, are enough to prevent burnout, because I know firsthand that is not true. Instead, we'll be focusing on sustainable habits that support long-term brain health and longevity, as well as strategies to reclaim focus and energy without compromising your ambition. And lastly is creating a life that feels aligned and purposeful and not just productive. So I'm your host, Jen Shepard. I am a brain health and performance strategist. On the personal side, I am a mom of 2 young kids. I love adventure, sports, my awesome friends and family, cooking, and being very involved in the community. I am an active volunteer in the Special Needs Ministry and Make-A-Wish Foundation, and I truly believe my purpose here is to not only help those in need, but be a present mother, wife, and friend. Now, I am also a huge nerd. I got my master's degree specializing in neuroscience and human behavior and spent 10 years as a high performer in IT cybersecurity sales. And I loved it. It was my dream job. I made great money. I got to travel to really cool places all the time, but found myself over the years repeatedly burning out, including not one, but 2 stress-induced autoimmune diseases. Now, I started to get really frustrated because I was doing all the things. I was doing the self-care and the massages and the gratitude journaling and the growth mindset, and none of it worked. Now, when I think back on this experience, I think of it almost as this bucket with all of these holes that were draining my energy. And although I was filling my cup with all these self-care activities, none of them were actually plugging the holes. And that's when I realized I wasn't doing the right activities. I wasn't doing the things that actually mattered. And I also realized that everybody loves to talk about preventing burnout, but there was some critical missing pieces to this conversation. You see, we are way too focused only on what we can see. We want big muscles, we go to the gym. If we have extra belly fat, we go on a diet. We are so quick to only focus on doing the external work. And we all want financial freedom. We want success. We want happiness. We want to be healthy. Then why are we not talking about the one thing that can get you all of those things or none of them? And that is the brain. All right, I'm going to nerd out for a second just to demonstrate the power of your brain. So picture this. And yes, I have my model here. Your brain has 86 million neurons in it, all of which are firing and communicating with each other, meaning your brain has 100 trillion, that is with a T, neural connections firing per second. Like, that is wild. Your brain has been said to be more complex than any other physical object in our entire cosmos, and also more complex than taking every single computer in the entire world combined. Like, why are we not talking about this? Now, I have spent the last couple years building a framework that combines brain science with longevity and stress recovery. Now, we are all busy and overwhelmed, so this focuses on making small shifts that leverages brain and energy optimization so that you can sustain peak performance without sacrificing your health or your sanity. It is also about giving you control back. We are so focused on the million things that are out of our control, whether it's politics or other people's opinions or actions, when what really matters, what actually determines our future success and happiness, you do have control over. And those are your thoughts and your habits. So everything that we're going to discuss is in your control. And to make it easy to remember, I made this framework out to the word brain, which I was so excited when I made that happen. And for today's episode, we're going to cover each of them from a very high level. And no, we're going to be covering a lot of different topics, but future episodes moving forward are going to be focused on only one of these, and we're going to go into a much deeper. Now, with that, let's get started. Now, the B in brain stands for building resilience. And this is focused on mental resilience built through power of the mindset and cognitive resilience built through cognitive reserve. So first things first is understanding that your mindset is the foundation to literally everything and is also one of the biggest things that holds us back. But once you understand how your thoughts are wired and programmed, you can rewire them to your advantage. It's also really important to understand that not only is our brain and our thoughts very powerful, but it also can be very deceiving. Now, our brain does not know the difference between a thought and something that is actually happening in real life. So, when we talk about ruminating and thinking back on past events, maybe it was a tough conversation or drama, or maybe for some people it is trauma. When you are continuously ruminating on these thoughts, your brain thinks you are experiencing these events in real time over and over again, which can actually have some damaging effects on our health. Now, there's actually research that shows that constant rumination has been linked to not only weakening memory, focus, decision making, and problem solving abilities, but also hormone imbalances and accelerating aging and inflammation, along with a bunch of other things, showing that our thoughts can actually impact our physiological state. Now, there are a bunch of studies that go much deeper on the power of the mindset, and we will dive way deeper into them on future episodes. But for now, I want to highlight one, which is my favorite. This is Dr. Crumb's milkshake study. Now, we've got two groups of participants. Group 1 receives a low-calorie Sensi shake. Group 2 receives a high-calorie indulgence shake. Their blood was taken before and after. And what they found is ghrelin levels. Now, ghrelin is a hunger hormone that signals to your brain that you are hungry, was much higher in the first group, right? That makes sense. But here's the catch. They were the same shake, same amount of calories, which means that just by thinking it was a low-calorie milkshake, Group 1 was able to impact their physiological hormone levels. Like, this is wild. Now, this study, along with many others, shows us that we actually do have the ability to impact our physiological states and our hormone levels. So what's really important is leveraging this to our advantage. Now, a lot of our ruminating thoughts stem from limiting beliefs. So if you want to build a resilient mindset, you have to learn to rewire your internal narratives and shift your fears into fuel. Now, I've been working with high-performing women for over 10 years, and something that I saw all the time was mom guilt. So let's debunk this one real quick. To the high-performing mom, you can travel for work and go to that workout class and still be a present parent. You can grind it out and build your career and still raise kids that feel unconditionally loved. You can have both. And you know what? We do not give ourselves enough credit because moms, we drink our coffee cold and our beers warm. We take our first bite of dinner when our family has their last. We give up our food even when we are starving, and we will cuddle our kids in the middle of the night exhausted even when they are contagious. And yes, we will grab the tissue even after you've sneezed right into our mouth. We have to appreciate all of the things that we do. And also remember that your kids are watching. They learn more from what you do than what you say. So don't ever feel guilty for all of your hard work. Now, that was just one of the many limiting beliefs that we will be debunking in future episodes. But the great news in all of this is that thanks to neuroplasticity, which is making new neural connections, we can learn to rewire our thoughts and shift our limiting beliefs into limitless potential. Now, what's really cool is Harvard has shown measurable structural brain changes in as little as 8 weeks. Now, in the beginning, I talked about making small shifts that have a big impact over time, and this is exactly it. So we will be talking all about how to rewire your mindset and shift it from being a liability into your greatest competitive advantage. Now, the second part to building resilience is building cognitive reserve, which I absolutely love talking about this. So cognitive reserve is your brain's extra capacity that has been shown to not only help you recover from stress stress faster, but also help stave off not just Alzheimer's and dementia, but Parkinson's and MS too. Like, why are we not talking about this? So, cognitive reserve was first discovered when they did autopsies on brains that were riddled with signs of Alzheimer's and dementia. So, a lot of tau and amyloid beta plaques all over it. However, when the person was living, they showed no signs of cognitive impairment, which is wild. And it was attributed to having that extra capacity, that cognitive reserve. Which then brings up the real question, which is how do I build my cognitive reserve? And the good news is we will have an entire episode talking just about this and the tips and tricks to build it. But I will leave you with a couple. First things first is stress inoculation. So this is subjecting yourself to many micro stresses. Yes, I'm going to say it. Cold showers are a really great way to do this. Now, let's get something straight about cold showers because as soon as you say that, people are like, no way in hell am I doing that. It doesn't have to be the whole shower. It can just be at the end. So I'll take my hot shower, I will enjoy it. And then at the end, when I do my face wash or my conditioner, I'll turn that all the way to cold. And then you literally have to stand in it because you have to get out what you have on. That is a great way to build cognitive reserve. Public speaking, another one. Creativity and novelty. So something new has also been attributed. And if you are able, strength training and aerobic exercises are one of the most pivotal influences in building cognitive reserve. So as you can see, building resilience is a critical first pillar in this framework because it allows you to recover from stress faster and potentially delay the onset. I didn't say prevent, delay the onset of dementia and Alzheimer's. Now, what makes this even more important is there is now research coming out showing that the actions and behaviors that you take in your 30s impact your chances of getting Alzheimer's and dementia later in life. So, like, why are we not talking about this? Everything that I do and all the information that I'm going to give you not only is going to give you that control back, but is going to be focused on behaviors that set our future self up for success. I think we are way too focused only on today and now and instant gratification. We are not thinking enough about our future self. So everything we do here is going to be focused on the right behaviors that, again, set that future version of you up for success. They will be thanking you. So when it comes to performance and longevity, of course, resilience is critical, but it is not enough if you cannot stay focused, which takes us to our second letter, R, which stands for reclaiming your focus. In a constantly distracted world, your attention is your most valuable currency. You see, we live in an overstimulated society where we are constantly inundated with inputs, and we structure our entire day around small dopamine hits. As soon as we wake up, what do? We grab our phone, we check our email, we're scrolling social media. We then go downstairs. We're probably checking our phone while we're getting our kids to school. And then we go to work and we've got all of these devices and we're sending an email and then we get a ping on our Apple Watch. And what do we do during our breaks? We grab our phone and we think that it'll be a mental break to scroll social media when really it does the opposite. More on that later. And then we go through our day, we pick our kids up, constantly listening to music or podcast. And then at the end of the day, what does everybody do to wind down? They watch TV. And then, God forbid, before you're going to sleep, scrolling once again. So we have to be very intentional about how our brain is being hijacked. These constant distractions are eroding our ability to concentrate and focus. I mean, how many times are we in line at the grocery store or at red lights and our phone is in our hand before we are even consciously aware that we grabbed it? That is terrifying. Or if you're like me, I'll go to write an email and then I'll see on one of my browser tabs, there's a notification. Maybe it's on LinkedIn and I'll go, oh, I'm going to check that. And then I'll click it and then I'll start scrolling the newsfeed and see someone that reminds me, oh, shoot, I got to send them a text. And then I'll go to text them. And before I even get the text, I am doom scrolling. And then 20 minutes go by and I'm like, oh my God, I never even wrote the email. And it is crazy when you start becoming aware of how out of control these devices and automatic they have become in our life. So my second pillar is all about taking a neuroscience approach to minimizing distractions and reclaiming focus and productivity so you can be spending your time doing the right things. So first, we need to stop multitasking. And I know, we all know it's not good for us, but we do it anyways. So let me just drive this point home real quick. Context switching or multitasking can increase errors up to 50%. It can also take an average of 23 minutes to regain focus after being distracted. So just think about how much time in your day you would get back if we just stayed focused on one task. And think about how much more productive you could be when you repurpose those 23-minute blocks into something else that drives value. Also, did you know that context switching can actually impact you physiologically by not only increasing your stress hormones, but it also can deplete glucose? Who knew? So we'll have an entire future episode dedicated just to productivity hacks and how to show up more focused throughout the day. But in the meantime, I do want to go over a couple from a very high level today. So first is leveraging ultradian cycles, which is 90 minutes on, or the Pomodoro method, which is 25 minutes on, 5 minutes off, 25 on, 5 minutes off. So grab a timer. And what I also want to emphasize to you is this is one task, meaning, yes, you have to close your browsers, you have to mute your notification and put your phone down. Or, like me, put it in another room. There's also great like silence modes on them. And lastly, take your Apple Watch off. You do not need to be getting pings about all of the notifications while we're trying to focus. And if you have ideas that pop into your brain while you're doing this one single task, I always bring a notebook off to the side, just write it down, and then you can come back to it, because it's when we break focus and go do that secondary task that we don't ever come back. So one task, grab a timer. All right, next is one of my favorites, which is leveraging your brain optimization windows. So throughout the day, your brain goes through different states. When you are sleeping, you are in delta state. Then you move into theta state. Theta is like, think of it as that hazy airplane state. Or if you've ever read a book before you fall asleep and you're kind of like in and out, that's theta state. Great for creativity. Then you move to alpha. Alpha, think of as like calm, productive. And then you move into beta. Now, beta has high beta and low beta. Low beta is, think like very productive. You're ripping through your to-do list. High beta, chronic stress. So we want to make sure that we're not going into high beta. And then the second half of the day, you go back down. You go from beta to alpha. And then right before you go to sleep, you hit that theta state again. And then delta, which is that deep sleep. So one thing to note here, when you grab your phone first thing in the morning, you are taking your brain from delta state all the way to beta. And if you are checking emails or scrolling social media, you are likely going all the way to high beta. And why this is important is because you are missing out on theta and alpha. And these are states that you really want to capitalize on. So, future episodes, we are going to go into this in more detail, and I will be able to tell you from 6 to 9 is great for these tasks. From 9 to 12, do these tasks, 12 to 2, etc. Now, it's not a perfect science, but I would just say start monitoring your energy levels throughout the day and when you feel most focused. Some people, like me, first thing in the morning, I feel really creative. I can problem solve. Some other people feel more creative and more productive in the evenings. So I would just monitor your energy levels throughout the day. And then we are going to talk all about how to take this and use it as your competitive advantage. Now, next is taking strategic device-free breaks. Y'all, we are on screens constantly. How often? Think about this for a second. Is your brain not looking at a laptop screen, a monitor, a phone, or a TV? Even in the bathroom, y'all, I know we're probably not supposed to talk about this, but we are. We are taking our phone. Like, why? When are we giving ourselves breaks? And this is so important. Taking strategic device-free breaks has been linked to better memory, better decision-making, and problem solving. And look, I know you're busy, you're back-to-back meetings, it's hard to find time throughout the day, but we're not talking about a 45-minute commitment. These are 5-minute breaks. So if you can, and if you're able, maybe you do a stretch on the floor. Maybe you take your dog for a walk with no devices. Or another great one is, why don't you go up and down the stairs a couple times, but just get that movement in where you are not looking at devices. Now, bonus, if you can sit there with your eyes closed, this is decreasing visual inputs. Now think about it. Throughout the day, you are hearing and seeing thousands, millions of inputs that your brain is trying to process. So by closing your eyes and being quiet, just be with yourself, I don't know, be bored, your brain is able to recover much faster. Now, what I didn't say was take a nap. So, I mean, you can take a nap. Naps have great benefits. But to the bosses out there, I'm not telling your employees to just nap during the day. Just take a quick 5-minute pause, shut your eyes, or just go up and down the stairs, do something that's movement if you're able, and no cell phones, y'all. Now, lastly, and we'll talk about this more in future episodes, but it's going to be building systems and routines to give you time back and make your life easier. So, what are the things that you can do on Sundays or the night before to set your day up for success? So, for example, my husband and I on Sundays we block out several hours. We are getting groceries delivered. If you are able, it saves so much time. We are also prepping our dog's food bags for every single meal. We got breakfast and lunch because he takes medications where it's like we knock it out, it takes maybe 20 minutes and it saves us time throughout the week. We are also laying out every single outfit for our children for Monday through Friday with the socks and the shoes because we know in the mornings trying to get these kids out the door, whatever we can do to set ourselves up for success makes our life so much easier. The night before, I lay out the cereal bowls with the spoons and the boxes of cereal with their clothes. So when they come downstairs in the morning, everything is right there and it makes mornings run so much more smooth. So start thinking about what are ways that you can reduce friction and set your days and your weeks up for success. So, this pillar of reclaiming focus is all about leveraging sustainable performance by doing the right activities and working in alignment with how your brain is designed to function. Now, I could give you all the productivity hacks in the world, but it will not matter if your nervous system never recovers, which takes us to our next letter, which is A. Activate your recovery. Now, when it comes to performance, recovery might be the most important tool, and it is often overlooked, especially by leaders. Now, I mentioned in the beginning there was some missing pieces to the burnout conversation. Well, this is one of them. Now, I always say stress isn't the enemy, lack of recovery is. You see, we first need to understand stress. How does it work, and how do we learn to recover from it faster? So, in small bursts, stress can actually be really good for you. It can help you improve memory, focus, problem solving, and help you build stress resilience, but only if you recover. Now, when a stressor happens, your sympathetic nervous system gets activated, which activates your amygdala, which, yes, I have my model right here. Your amygdala is right in here. The amygdala is the threat detection, and we need it. So when I teach brain health to children, we call this the barking dog. Well, what happens during stress when the amygdala is activated, it quiets the prefrontal cortex, which is up here. We call this in teaching children Mr. Professor. Now, the prefrontal cortex is great for problem solving, emotional control, decision making, rational thinking. But what happens again? So when the amygdala is triggered, the prefrontal cortex goes offline. And what's crazy is they can't talk at the same time. So any parent knows that you cannot have a rational discussion with a toddler during a meltdown. And that is because not only is their prefrontal cortex not developed until 25 years old, but also when they are in a tantrum, their amygdala, their barking dog is activated, so they cannot have rational discussions, which is why, again, we're going to have this on future discussions. But for the parents out there, when your kid gets triggered, letting them just sit and be in quiet, don't just chase them, just let them relax, which will activate the prefrontal cortex and quiet down that amygdala. So then they can actually talk about it in debrief. All right, now back to the stress cycles. So after a stressor has occurred, normally your parasympathetic nervous system is triggered, which is rest and digest. But the problem is over half of the population is living in chronic fight or flight, meaning their parasympathetic nervous system is never getting triggered and they're just living in chronic stress, which can have damaging effects to your health, which I personally know all about. But the good news is there are a ton of stress regulation strategies that can help you recover from stress faster. Now, today we're going to cover a few of them from a very high level, but remember, we're going to go into each of these in separate episodes in the future. So the first is one of my favorites to talk about, and it is so important, which is sleep. Now, lack of sleep can be detrimental to your health and your performance, but today we're going to explain why it is so important. So you've probably heard of the lymphatic system, but in your brain is the glymphatic system, which is where cerebrospinal fluid washes out all the toxins. Now, I have heard this described as a squirt bottle, just squirting fluids and like washing everything out. So let's think of this as a car wash for your brain, clearing out all those toxins. Now, in addition, deep sleep is also consolidating memories with helping your hippocampus and your memories, as well as creating new neural pathways. So, one thing to emphasize here to get these positive benefits, you have to be getting deep sleep and entering certain sleep cycles. So, you cannot be sleeping 4 or 5 hours and be consolidating memories and cleaning out toxins. So strive for 7 to 8 hours a night. So future episodes on sleep, which I'm super excited about, are going to teach you all about tools and building sleep routines so that you can not only fall asleep quickly, but you can stay asleep and get good quality sleep. Now, investing into my sleep routines has taken me from crazy insomnia to sleeping like a baby. So get excited. Now, number two is nervous system regulation through breath work, which I am super passionate about because I personally have seen the benefits of doing this. Now, we talked about the stress cycles. So when you get stressed, your breath actually shallows, reducing the amount of oxygen that you can take in, which can be detrimental to your health long term and also lead to dysfunctional breathing, which personally happened to me. So a couple years ago, I had a burnout that showed up in the form of losing my voice for 8 months. So about 1 month in, I seeked out a voice coach. And our first meeting, I'm sitting there in person and she's like, "All right, Jen, take a deep breath." And I go, and for those of you that cannot see me, my shoulders went up to my ears and I relaxed. And she was like, "Oh no." She was like, "That is not how you breathe." And I was like, "What do you mean? Like, have I been breathing wrong my whole life?" Like, I had no idea. And basically, I had developed dysfunctional stress induced breathing where I was not breathing through my diaphragm. So I learned a lot through this journey, which I will be sharing all the tips and tricks with you. But a couple of the basics. Now, when you do breath work, you are filling your lungs with oxygen and you are removing the CO2. There has been a lot of studies that show the physiological benefits of doing simple breathwork practices. Now, we are not talking about hour-long daily practices. We're talking about 5 minutes a day for a certain amount of time has been shown to make measurable difference. So a couple quick things to know about breath work. First is understanding what is your objective. So if you are trying to calm down and trigger your parasympathetic nervous system, maybe you're really stressed out, you just need to calm, you are going to want to do what is called an extended exhale, meaning you are breathing out longer than you are breathing in. Secondly, if you are wanting to be more focused and get amped up, you're going to want to do what is called box breathing. Now, the media took off with box breathing and it was often recommended if you are like having a panic attack. And I want to emphasize again, if you are trying to calm, I would recommend doing the extended exhales. We have a future episode that we recorded already with Joss. I am so excited for it to launch because you are going to learn all about this and the different techniques and strategies, and most importantly, what it is doing inside of your body from a scientific standpoint. So, anyways, couple keys to know about breathwork also. We are breathing in through our nose and out through our mouth. And the other thing too to remember that I was doing wrong is we are not breathing through our chest. We are breathing through our diaphragm and our belly. So let's take a deep breath together. I highly recommend doing this. We're going to breathe in and out. Now, make sure you notice that your shoulder's not going up into your ears and that your belly is going in and out. This is diaphragmatic breathing. And again, we have another episode coming out on this that is so good. All right, next, let's move on to movement and exercise. Now, we all know that this is good for us, but I want to explain really quickly why. So, when you are exercising, your brain is releasing what is called BDNF, which is brain derived neurotrophic factor. BDNF has recently been shown to help grow new neurons in your hippocampus, which is in charge of your memory. Now, this is what's called neurogenesis, which was debated for years of whether or not we could actually grow new neurons. And it has come out recently that yes, you can in one specific region, which is the one we want, which is that hippocampus and the memory. And it is elicited when you are doing exercise. So again, super, super important. If you are able Strength training and aerobic exercises are the most pivotal influence in brain health, staving off Alzheimer's, and overall longevity. Exercise is also great at combating what is called active sedentary, which is when you work out or exercise for like 30 to 60 minutes a day and then you just sit the rest of the day, which I am very guilty of. I always thought, oh, well, I got my workout in, it doesn't matter. Oh, no, it does. Research is now coming out saying how devastating it is to be sitting all day, whether or not you exercise. I mean, obviously it's better, but it's still detrimental. Now, the good news is Luisa Nicola gave a tip saying if you can do 10 air squats every single hour, not only does it outweigh the benefits of doing a 30-minute power walk, but it also undoes the damage of active sedentary. And I can tell you that I have been doing this and I have been loving it. So especially on days where I am like meeting back-to-back meetings, I'm on the road and can't find the time to get an exercise in. I will be in the parking lot, dropping it like it's hot, doing my 10 air squats, I don't care what anybody thinks, and then just hop back in the car and drive for the next hour. So highly recommend. It's fun. It's just a way to get up, get your movement, get your device-free breaks, and help combat active sedentary. And the last part of recovery we're going to talk about from a very high level today and dive much deeper into later is nutrition and finding ways to fuel sustainable energy throughout the day. Now, we are all busy. We are running around. We are overwhelmed. We cannot add a huge uplift when it comes to prepping our meals. So I am on a mission and I will be sharing with you what are some quick breakfast options that are high protein, clean, healthy, that can sustain energy throughout the day. Also, what are those pantry staples that you should have at your desk or in your pantry at home that you can grab and again, sustain that energy throughout the day? And then also with lunch. We do not have time to be making these like lavish, fancy, expensive, time consuming lunches. So I'm going to be sharing with you what are those go-to meals that you can grab and go and keep you performing at your peak throughout the day. We are avoiding the 3 p.m. crash. Now, I will say I pride myself on eating very clean and very healthy foods. And what I recommend that helped us on this whole journey is just educate yourself on ingredients. Food marketers do an incredible job of tricking you and thinking that foods are healthy when they're actually not. So just educate yourself on different ingredients and read the labels. Now, I do get a lot of questions of like, what's the best diet? And I am in no way a nutritionist. So let's just caveat that. I can tell you what the research says, and that says mostly what is recommended right now is the Mediterranean diet. Also, when we look at blue zones, everybody knows I love talking about blue zones because it's longevity. Blue zones are areas and pockets across the world where centenarians live. Centenarians being active people living well into their hundreds. And I'm not talking about like on their deathbed. I am talking about they are still gardening, they are still walking. So, of course, a lot of studies were done on these people. Like, what is contributing to make them this active and live this long? And one of the 9s, called the Power 9 of the habits that attribute to longevity, one of them is called plant slant, meaning they mostly eat foods, which is what my husband and I follow as well, that you can buy on the perimeter of the grocery store. So I will leave you with that. We're going to go much deeper into nutrition with an actual expert nutritionist who can educate on us on all of this. And that's it as far as recovery. So this pillar is all about regulating your nervous system so that you can recover from stress faster and sustain peak performance. All right, the next letter is I, which is ignite your impact. Now, the other things we've talked about thus far, we've got recovery, we've got focus, we've got mindset. Those are heavily talked about, but there's a couple pieces that I've built into my framework that I feel like are not talked about enough, but are critically important when it comes to happiness and performance. Now, this pillar is all about living in alignment with the legacy that you want to leave behind. How many of us are heads down on a hamster wheel, just chasing a life that we don't even know if we want? Now, there was a study done by Bonnie Ware. I have to laugh because I talk about this study in everything I do. So Bonnie Ware was a hospice nurse, and she interviewed every single person before they died. The number one regret was, I wish I lived a life that was true to myself, not a life that others wanted me to live. Whew, that is powerful. How many of us are living a life that we don't even know if we want? So let's get morbid for a second and pretend that you are no longer here. You look back on your life. what do you want people to say about who you were and the life that you lived? I want to pause for a second and give you the opportunity to actually reflect on that. Not just hear the words, but really think. How do you want people to describe you? What is the legacy and the impact that you left behind? Now, in my coaching program, spoiler alert, I make my clients write their eulogy. Now, talk about a powerful exercise to get you in alignment with the legacy that you want to leave behind. Highly recommend. Now, in addition to knowing where you're going, you also need to live in alignment with who you are. So, how many times is there cognitive dissonance between who you see in the mirror and who you actually are? How many people do you know, or maybe yourself, who changed the version of you to show up as the person someone else wanted you to be? And how often do we attribute our identity to things that are completely out of our control, like the roles that we play or the performance at work or in our business? I always joke that you could be the best parent in the world, and your toddler is still gonna have a meltdown because you had to cook the chicken and they couldn't eat it raw. Or you could be the best partner in the world and you have one tiny fight and poof, now you're a terrible person. Or for those of us who work in a service business or own your own business or are in sales, when things are going really well, you're like, hell yeah, I'm awesome. But the moment things start going poorly, you're like, "Oh, I quit. I don't want to do this anymore." We cannot let external factors like other people's actions and opinions be the barometer to our self worth. Each of you is such a badass. You are doing incredible things all the time. You just have to notice. How many times are we missing simple moments of joy happening all around us because we are too focused on the wrong things? I know I have. There were times where I was way too focused on my career and missed beautiful moments happening all around me. But January 2025, I made a commitment to myself that that would never happen again. So I started noticing and tracking my moments of joy that happened throughout the week. Because at the end of the year, I wanted hundreds of beautiful memories to look back on. And these are the simple moments that often would be overlooked. Like Carter said something funny in the car on the way home, or Riley gave me the biggest hug that was unprompted. These simple moments that when we're heads down, we don't even notice. I love this exercise and I highly recommend doing it. And also, no one can build impact alone, which takes us to our last and final letter, which is N, which is nurture your connections. This is what I call your front row or your personal board of directors. These are your sweatpant messy bun friends, your I don't have to tidy my house friends, your mimosa on the soccer sidelines friends, your laugh when our kids pee their pants friends. Now, I have to crack up at this because when I would say that on stage and I would go back and look at the recording from it, I would accidentally say, laugh when our kids pee our pants, friends. I'm like, are the kids peeing their pants or the moms peeing their pants? Are we both peeing our pants? Because trampolines. But, anyways, these are the friends that, yes, of course, they cheer you on, but that's the easy part. These are the people that are in the trenches with you, picking up the pieces when you are broken. Because on your deathbed, it is not your resume and bank statements that you ask for, it's your loved ones. So make sure you find your front row and pour into them. Also, brain fact, social connection elicits oxytocin, which has been strongly correlated with longevity. Now, another part of nurturing your social connections is distancing from toxic people. So take notice of who you hang around with. And if there are people that drain your energy, either cut them off or set boundaries. Because I can teach you tools for performance and happiness and productivity all day. But if you are surrounding yourself with the wrong people, true transformation cannot happen. Now, we can't talk about nurturing your connections without talking about mentorship, which for some reason, I don't know why, I feel like recently we've been moving away from this, but you should have a handful of people in your network that are smarter than you and further along in their career. You want to be surrounding yourself with people who are doing the job that you could only dream of. And yes, gasp, it does mean that you have to find them and reach out to them and meet them and learn from them. Because at the end of the day, you want to be surrounding yourself with people that are encouraging you to level the F up. Let's go. All right, that's it. I know we covered so much. It was a lot of different topics. And just a reminder, we're going to go much deeper into each of them in future episodes. But I did want to give you kind of a holistic approach of what to expect and the topics that we'll be discussing. Now, before we close out, I have to remind you that sometimes you may have goals that sit on your list a lot longer than you were expecting. 5 years is how long it took me to launch this podcast. And every year at the end of the year, when I didn't cross it off, never once did I think of that as a failure. So, just a reminder, if you have goals you haven't checked off yet, sometimes it just means that it's not the right time yet. So, do not give up. And stay tuned for the bloopers at the end. Those might be the best part. Now, I'm going to close this out with a quote I got from a friend of a friend. It's on this awesome sticker. You can actually purchase them if you want, but it says, "What if it all works out?" And I think so often we focus on what if it doesn't and all the negative voices and all the limiting beliefs. But I want to remind you to flip the script, rewire your thoughts, and ask yourself, but what if it does? And with that, I need to do a huge thank you to all of the people that were involved in helping this podcast finally get launched. First is my husband, Kyle, my CTO, helping me with all of the technical difficulties in the back end and just being such a supporter. Also, my business coach, Sarah, for kicking my booty into actually getting this done. My friends and family, and of course, the entire community who's been here to support me along the way. So, thank you so much for being here. If you have listened this far, I am just so grateful for you. And I want to come up with some cool thing to say to end my episodes, but I have no idea what it is. So might need your input and your feedback because you are part of this community and I so appreciate you. So with that, cheers. Our next letter, which is R. A. My brain fell apart. Sure hope this thing recorded. How do you even smack your lip with a f***ing headphone? Take 3, 4, 5. I don't even know. I feel like I need a walk-up song for every single solo episode just for myself. I just have to find one that's appropriate. Today is going to go so well. And if it doesn't, then whatever. We're just going to ship it. Ship it. Oh my goodness. Thank you. And Kaden, what do you have to say? Right? And that's a wrap.